I focused on clothing, apparel, and accessories for men and women because that's where the money is.
Right.
But if I were to do this again, so I think the opportunity is there where there's too much stuff in the world. There's a lot of need in the world, and anybody can be that intermediary between to monetize the stuff and donate the money.
And I always say that, you know what, in my business, I'm the accountant, I'm the janitor, I'm the secretary, I'm the receptionist. I don't care if I have employees. I got to know each and everything that they do.
And a lot of people, when I was doing research into what business I wanted to start, people said, oh, that's such a great idea. Don't tell anybody. Somebody's going to steal it from you. And I thought, well, that's just not me. I'm going to tell everybody.
And every time you do not meet a goal, it's not called failure, it's called experience. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Step by Step Talks. I'm thrilled to be here today in Panama with a very, very special guest. Before I go ahead and introduce my guest to you, I'd like to share with you the title of our talk today. We're going to talk about triple bottom line businesses, and my guest today has informed me how you can do good, give back, make money, and save the planet, and have fun at the same time. Now, without further ado, I'm going to welcome our guest, Rosalind Baitel. Good morning.
Thank you, Rohini. It's so good to be here.
Welcome. I am so excited to learn more about what you've been doing, how you got to Panama in the first place. You've got a remarkable story, and we'll start with that. How did you get to Panama and how did you start?
Okay, thanks for asking. So I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, which is a really fun city. So fun is in my DNA. And I wanted to do something different out of college. I wanted to work overseas. So right out of college, I started applying for overseas jobs.
Right.
This was the 80s.
Okay.
And I was accepted for a job in Panama teaching high school biology and science in the schools that service the Canal Zone schools.
Oh.
So I moved to Panama on my 25th birthday. You can do the math.
Wow.
And I've lived here 39 years.
Wow.
So I will be, almost 64.
Yeah.
But I moved here not knowing a soul and came here for a job and stayed. I signed a 2-year contract, but I loved it. And I was teaching on the Caribbean coast at a school called Cristobal High School. Doesn't exist anymore. It's part of the Manzanillo terminal, the port. But I loved it from the beginning I got here. And then a few months after I got here, I met someone, as we single women do. And he's now my husband of 35 years. We just celebrated our 35th anniversary.
Congratulations.
And he's actually from Colón, from the Atlantic province of Panama. So my whole adult life has been in Panama. And so teaching was a great career for me, and it got me out of the United States. But I go back a lot because I still have a lot of family there. And along the way, of course, we were married. We have 2 children. Our daughter's 32. She's about to have her first child.
Wonderful.
Our son is 27 and still single in Philadelphia. And so my whole life has been here.
That is awesome. Now, as I was speaking to you earlier, you had said that things rapidly changed after the Panama invasion and the treaties that were signed. So things in Cologne and things in your life sort of took a big turn. Do you want to speak about that a little bit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the Department of Defense schools where I was teaching were mandated to close in 1999 with the Panama Canal Treaty and the closing of the bases. Well, I was working in those schools, but by then I was married with 2 children and my husband had rebuilt his business. He lost his entire business during the U.S. invasion because of looting and theft and things like that. So his business was rebuilt in the free zone of Colón and we weren't going anywhere. So I had to reinvent. I didn't want to continue teaching because back then, most of the schools in Panama, even if they're bilingual schools, they required you to speak some Spanish. But back then I didn't speak any Spanish. My job for the first 14 years I lived here was in English. Our social life was in English. And my Spanish was pretty bad. So in 1999, I had to just think about what I wanted to do. And that was fun. So I spent 6 months asking around.
Okay.
And that's another message for women. Because what I learned in that period of my life is that there are two types of women. Some women are very secretive. And if they have an idea, they keep it to themselves. They're very afraid because someone might steal it.
Exactly.
And then you're going to hear this theme about me throughout this interview. But some women, me, I'm the big mouth. I'm the blabbermouth. I want to tell everybody. And a lot of people, when I was doing research into what business I wanted to start, people said, oh, that's such a great idea. Don't tell anybody. Somebody's going to steal it from you. And I thought, well, that's just not me. I'm going to tell everybody. It's like throwing spaghetti against a wall. I'm going to throw a lot of spaghetti and see what sticks.
Yep.
And if somebody steals it from me, that would be the best form of flattery.
That is just awesome.
And I'm going to tell you, in the 20 years I had this business, nobody has copied the exact same business model the exact way I did it.
Now, that is so interesting. And to the audience, I would really recommend that you hear us right to the end of the podcast, because Rosalind is going to share some ideas. And if you're looking to start a business, this would be a podcast that you do want to listen to. With Rosalind, I see resilience. Now, I, over the past few years, have seen a lot of resilient women. But what I always say is that resilience is in everybody. It's just how you use it. Many people don't know how to use their resilience and move forward step by step. But today we're going to listen to you about how you started this business. Well, you already told us how you started, but what your business is, what you did, how you came up with this great idea that anybody can do anywhere, really, and help everybody at the same time.
Absolutely. I'm happy to share. I do believe in the nature of this business. So rewinding back to 1999, and I didn't have very many skills, as I used to joke with my friends back then, I could dissect a frog and I could balance a chemical equation in English. Nobody's paying me to do that. So what else did I know how to do? Well, ladies, a little secret. I'm a pretty good thrifter. I can go into a resale store and I can scope out a thrift store anywhere from low end to Salvation Army and Goodwill to a very high end shishi consignment store on Rodeo Drive. And I can snuff out a bargain. And thank you, Mom. My mom taught me that. My mother was a model back in her day and used to know how to dress very well on a shoestring budget. So it's been with me ever since. And along the way, living in Panama for those 14 years when I was teaching in the Canal Zone, my husband ended up joining the Rotary Club. We ended up joining a few other groups in Panama. So we would go to these fabulous events.
Yeah.
And what I learned about predominantly the women in Panama, they dress well. They never repeat an outfit. They're very status and fashion conscious. And they're all beautifully coiffed and dressed. The other thing I learned about women, because through the Rotary Club, they're very benevolent. Panama is a very benevolent society, and people want to give back. They want to do good. They want to help. They want to collaborate. So after going to all these events, I used to ask my husband, what do you think these women do with their clothes when they no longer want them? And of course, typical man, what do you think he said to me? I don't know.
Yeah.
Or he said, you can't ask that. I said, well, watch me. So I started going to these events and I just asked people that spoke English mostly because I couldn't really communicate with the Spanish-speaking women back then. But I just sort of win favor with some women and go, I love that outfit. Hey, by the way, what do you do with your stuff when you don't want it anymore? And they're like, oh, we give it to the maid. So then I started looking around Panama and I'm like, oh, I don't see any of the housekeepers walking around in Chanel and Louis Vuitton and Hermes and, Max Mara. I don't know about this. So yes, they were giving it to the maid, but then they weren't following what was happening to it after. And I don't know what the housekeepers back then were doing with it. But I thought, okay, what's your favorite charity? So one woman had Casa Esperanza, one woman had Casita de Mausi, one woman had Funda Cancer. I mean, these are all very well-known charitable groups in Panama that the Panamanian women were already opening their checkbook and supporting. So basically what I did, I spent about 6 months tweaking this business model
Okay.
where I went directly to the charitable organization and using these women as contacts. And I said, look, what if I told you, instead of giving your high-end things that still have a value, what instead of giving those to the housekeeper,
Yeah.
or just sending them to the church or the synagogue and you don't really know what happens to it after that, I'm going to open a boutique and I'm going to sell previously owned, high-end, donated items. And when the items that you donate sell,
Yeah.
the money will go to your charity of choice.
That's
And their
amazing.
eyes went, okay, I'm in. So I started in 1999 doing my market research. And again, back to the secrecy, because now you know the rest of the story. I would tell my friends, well, it was kind of funny because I had two groups of friends, Americans and Panamanians. My American friends all said, oh, yes, do it. Great. We love resale. We love thrifting.
They
We love
buy.
Great.
Yeah.
My Panamanian friends, it was a little bit of a harder sell because in Spanish they would say, ropa usada, que pereza, yo no voy a poner ropa de otra persona. I am so proud to tell you in the 20 years that I had promises, and that was what I named it. There's a whole backstory to that. It had a charity angle of its own. The P was the P of Parkinson's disease. And my best friend, who was a teacher with me, died of an early onset Parkinson's disease. And I made a promise to her widower that if I started a business and I actually made money, I would donate proceeds to establish an endowment in her name at the Parkinson's Research Center in Loma Linda, California.
Okay.
I'm also very proud to tell you, after 2 years of being in business, that my donation is what pushed that foundation over the edge and allowed a permanent endowment to be established in the name of my friend
That is fantastic.
to do
Amazing.
Parkinson's research. So it had this whole backstory, which is why when I sold the business in 2020, the girl who bought it loved the story and loved the store, but she didn't really continue with the Promises name because it wasn't her story. So I'll get to that in a minute. So back to 1999. So I asked all my Latin friends, what do you think? And they're like, I don't know. But my pride is that 20 years of having Promises, 99% of my buyers were Panamanian.
Oh, they were.
Absolutely.
That is amazing because I have seen the Panamanian culture now that I've understood it the last few months I've been here. And you're very right. They dress very well. And I know they don't repeat clothes.
I had judges, government ministers. I also had men's clothing.
Yeah.
I had journalists. I had people in the government, people in the private sector. Very proud. And I'll tell you, not to toot my own horn, but if you follow any of the fashion blogs in Panama, now there is quite the culture of previously owned things.
Clothes, yeah.
And those people really will give me the credit. If you look on my Instagram, about 3 months ago, it was the Panama Fashion Awards. I was invited. And the girl who runs the Fashion Awards was very quick to say, Rosalind Baitel is the founder of the pre-love movement in Panama.
That is amazing.
So that is something I can be very proud of, and I've passed the torch on that business. So yeah, along the way, I bought a commercial space because I said to my husband, I know this business is going to be a hit. All women like bargains. Everybody likes a bargain. It's just how you spin it. So I bought a piece of commercial real estate, which turned out to serve me very well because it's in a very well-known part of Panama now called San Francisco.
Yeah.
Back then, it was just more of a residential neighborhood, but now it's quite commercial. So, yeah, I kind of built a brand there.
That's amazing.
And yeah,
That is so amazing. So this is a message to all the women out there with your, glamorous clothes and bags and shoes, which we all love. I love them too. There's a way to actually give back to the world, give back to everybody instead of keeping them at home and not using them or else, just giving them away. Now, when they come and donate or gave you the item that they wanted to sell, did they get a charitable receipt for that?
yes, that's the secret.
Yeah.
So 2 secrets. Number 1, you really want to work directly with executive directors of nonprofits. I tried not to work with individual donors because then it becomes too chaotic. People just drop stuff off. So we had a pretty strict protocol. It's all by appointment. I work with the executive director of the charities. I'm also very proud to say that by the time the pandemic hit in 2020, I was up to working with or having worked with over 60 charitable organizations in Panama.
And you gave them the receipt, or was it the
No,
charitable?
I'm not a nonprofit. That's the beauty of the business.
Oh, so you're not the nonprofit.
I make money.
Yeah.
But the charity, so basically what you're doing, you're donating, instead of opening your checkbook, you're donating goods. When I sell the goods, I convert those goods to cash.
Yeah.
And then I do a check to the charity. Well, when the charity gets a check,
They send
on the stub, it says Rohini donated X amount, so-and-so donated X amount, Mrs. So-and-so donated X amount. So those people would get the charitable donation at the end of the year from the charity.
Yeah.
And so that's why I worked with executive directors, so they could keep those very accurate receipts. And then the donors would get a tax-deductible receipt.
How does a housewife benefit from this if she's not working and she gets a charitable receipt?
Well, so her husband, you could do it in the name of his business.
You could, okay.
And some people didn't really care.
Okay.
But again, the charity needs money. And actually, coming out of pandemic, it's even a better business model because so many nonprofits took a big hit during the pandemic. They just lost their donor base. So everybody has stuff lying around. I focused on clothing, apparel, and accessories for men and women because that's where the money is.
Right.
But if I were to do this again, I would broaden it and focus on housewares, collectibles, art, giftware. We all have a gift closet of things we're not using. You can apply the same business model to any merchandise.
Yeah.
You know, in the States, they have this store, Play It Again Sports, right?
Yeah.
You can do sporting goods for a charity angle.
Good. Yeah.
You can do anything. So I'm very open to being a consultant, sharing some of my trade secrets, because there are some secrets. And then tweaking it to whatever the person who wants to open the business, whatever their circumstances are.
Of course.
Maybe they say, I don't want to buy a piece of commercial real estate, but I'm very active in a church, and I think my church could use this business model.
Yeah.
Actually, really, the way I got started, I happen to be part of the Jewish community of New Orleans. And when I was growing up, the Sisterhood thrift store in my synagogue was super popular.
Okay.
They were really open 2 or 3 days a week,
Right.
but they were open to the public.
Okay.
And that's the business model they used. So people would donate everything, but the synagogue would get the money. I tried to do that here with our synagogue back in the 90s.
Yeah.
But the rules of security in Panama are very strict,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't allow me to open the synagogue to the public. So that's part of the reason I bought my own real estate. I said, okay, I'm going to open this, but I'm going to open it up to all charities.
Okay, I see.
So I started with 5 charities in the year 2000. And originally I was going to staff it with volunteers from the charities. So if you were part of the Cancer Foundation, if you sent your volunteers that month to run the store, you'd get an extra percentage of the sales.
Right.
It didn't really work that well. I think it would work better now, 24 years later. But yeah, there were a few bumps along the way, but the business model is very solid and it works.
It does work.
Do good, give back, have fun, meet people,
money.
make money.
And have fun.
And
That's right.
recycle. Yeah.
Yeah, have some comedy while you're doing that. Now, while everything, while this was going on, everything was happening, you went through some very difficult personal challenges. And I always like to bring this up because as we speak to, women who have been successful, who've gone through, getting fame like you have, and are invited everywhere.
Notoriety.
Yeah,
I wish it were paid.
No, I mean, everybody in Panama said, you have to interview Rosalind. You have to. You're right. So, and I'm glad I did. But do you want to share with the audience how difficult it was and share some of your personal challenges? I have a story. You have a story. And we'd love to hear how you got through that because a lot of people just give up. And giving up is not the answer. I always say, take us one step and then another step and then another step.
Well, thank you for asking. You're correct. In 2010, so I'm 10 years into the business.
Right.
Our daughter had just been accepted to Princeton University, so we were
Wonderful.
very proud.
Yeah.
Our son had just had his bar mitzvah, which for us is a really big deal.
Yeah.
So my year was going really great. And then I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yeah.
And it was stage 3 by the time they caught it, not seen on a mammogram.
Not seen. Wow.
Because, as luck would have it, it's the 10% of cancers. Most women who have breast cancer, it's in the duct.
Yeah.
So you see it in a mammogram, you feel it. Mine was called lobular. Starts in a lobe in the back and very slowly moves forward.
Okay.
So by the time it was caught, it was already at stage 3. And wow, that's a cold drink of water hitting you in the face. So by then I was 10 years into my business.
Right.
My daughter was about to go off to college, and there was no way around it. It was stage 3. By the time the oncologist got me in the office and said, you're having a mastectomy, you're doing chemo, you're doing radiation, there's no way you can travel. You're going to be on the toughest regimen of chemotherapy. So I have to tell you, the only time I really cried was knowing I wasn't going to be able to take my daughter to college.
Oh, that is a very hard time. Yeah.
So we hit it full on. We hit it. I had my mastectomy in June of 2010.
In Panama?
Oh, yes. So that was the other thing. I had worldwide medical, thank goodness. I had this policy that allowed me to choose, did I want to do my treatments in the U.S. or in Panama?
Yeah.
But my daughter was going off to college. I owned a thriving business in Panama City. And by then, social media was kind of starting. So I was kind of the face of the business. I was the face of the business, but I was getting a little notoriety. And so I had the option to do all my treatments here. And my son was 13. So I wasn't going to leave my son, leave my business, leave my husband, who would have to come back and forth. Although I have a strong family support system in the U.S. So I was able to do all my treatments here. And then, again, back to the secrecy and blabbermouth. Well, you know me by now. I'm a blabbermouth.
You're
so
vibrant.
I thought, either I just do this in secret, suffer in silence, go on about my day, or I tell everybody. And it was before people were really posting things in public. I didn't even have Facebook back then. I didn't start my Facebook until 2012. But I said, no, I'm going to be pretty public about this. I'm going to tell my friends. I'm going to tell the people I love and care about. I'm going to tell my rabbi, tell my community, because my attitude back then was not, why me? Why not me? And I think that's another message as you confront a challenge, instead of the why me, why not me? Bring it on. And we're going to use this to help others.
Yes.
So my friends who knew me back then and still know me will tell you, I hit it head on, mastectomy, then the chemo. So I was on 8 sessions of the most rigorous chemotherapy. Lost my hair, lost all the hair, some good, some bad. You know what that's like, just saying. And then I invited all my friends to each chemo session. I said, if I've got to be hooked up to the machine and be getting the drip, come keep me company.
Okay.
And I'm very proud to tell you, my last 2 chemo sessions, we call them chemo parties.
Yeah.
The doctor had to come in and kick out most of my friends because we were making too much noise. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to be surrounded by loved ones, by people who cared about me. And at the time, I had a very good friend. She's since passed away, but she was my mentor, my best friend. She died at 94. She had had cancer 5 times. And she was the one who told me, you're gonna do fine. Okay. You're gonna get through this.
Yeah.
So that was 2010. Then I did my reconstruction in 2011. I had full radiation in that time as well. And then along the way, you do your yearly checkups, your PET scans, your mammograms, your mammary ultrasound. If there's one thing I could tell women, and do a little aside, because one of the talks that I do give at the International Living Conferences is about my experience having had cancer as an expat in Panama.
Yeah.
Definitely be your own advocate for your own health care, and ask a lot of questions. Follow the pathology, because that's the missing link. The pathologist is the one doctor you never see.
Yeah.
And follow your results. And then be your own advocate, and be a partner with your medical team. And Panama was super open for that.
Yeah. Panama's
very open.
Very good healthcare for sure.
Yeah.
So how did you proceed into your business then? You let your business run, and what happened
Thank
next?
you. Yeah. Because I had employees, as you do. I had 3 full-time employees. And about 3 months after I started coming back to work, I went to work all through, but I wasn't there as hands-on. And of course, I was hit with another challenge.
And what was that?
My staff had been stealing from me.
Oh, that is awful.
My staff
Yeah.
figured out a workaround because basically what was happening back then, people would just drop stuff off.
Of course.
And they'd say, in good faith, I mean, here, I'm dropping off 20 items for the animal shelter, patas con whatever charity. We didn't require an appointment. We really didn't sit with them and do the inventory. It was a trust system.
Yeah.
But I found out through, and my husband is fabulous. He's Mr. Paperwork and Mr. Bring It On. We're going to do a sting operation. So we ended up putting cameras, doing a sting, setting up how the theft was taking place. And it was a loophole that we needed to tighten up a practice, because if we weren't really too tight on how the donations were arriving, some of them were walking out the door before they would get written up on the contract.
I see. They were taking them as they came through the door.
So we cleaned that up. Yeah. I had to come back from cancer and redo my staff and put in a more sophisticated system of inventory, of software, of cameras. And that's a good thing. You can't ever get too complacent in your business. You can't ever get too comfortable, because we're always having to reinvent. And that's another message of this podcast as well. So after that, we became much stricter. I said to the charitable organizations who are affiliates of mine, I'm so sorry, we can no longer take drop and donate. We can't. We have to work by private appointment. I have to be there when the high value items come in. And we had our computer system. I had to hire a software developer to write a system of software, because by then the paperwork was getting monumental.
Yeah.
And we cleaned up our act, and it was great. And
it never happened again.
Well, things happen, but we were much tighter.
Yeah.
So challenges. So then I ran the business for another 10 years.
That's just amazing. I mean, your story is so inspiring. A lot of women, or a lot of people, would just give up. It's not just women, because, having that cancer scare on you just shatters you. It shatters your family, it shatters you, and you sort of want to give up. But you just kept going on and on. So this is what I said: resilience, tenacity. I think, Rosalind, these are the words all that belong to you.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah,
and reinvention.
Reinvention too, as well.
Like they say, don't retire, rewire.
Yeah, don't retire, rewire. That's right.
Because, something will come along and it'll force you one way or another, but look at it, flip the switch.
Yeah.
Look at it as an opportunity.
Yeah. Now you are, earlier on as we were speaking, you said that you wouldn't mind sharing your knowledge and starting this business all over again with somebody. If somebody wanted to do this business, you'd like to be a consultant, if I'm right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and show them how to actually start this business. And that would not only be in Panama, that would be anywhere in the world, I would say.
Absolutely, right? Because the advantages exist everywhere. People with too much stuff. And I will say, coming out of the pandemic, and I use the pandemic as a benchmark also. We have, where I'm from, Hurricane Katrina or 9/11 or the pandemic. We've had in Panama, the invasion. We've all had our benchmarks.
Yeah.
But I think pandemic also taught us, because everybody was home on Zoom sitting around, and you realize, I got a lot of stuff here. What am I going to do with it? And we can all live with less. And so I think the opportunity is there, where there's too much stuff in the world. There's a lot of need in the world, and anybody can be that intermediary between to monetize the stuff and donate the money. Mm-hmm. It's just a question of how you frame it.
That's right.
Those are some of my trade secrets, and I'm happy to share them.
Yeah, and at the
how
same
you
time,
get into those closets? How do you get into the charitable organizations? How do you make those relationships? How do you prove that you can do what you say you're going to do?
Exactly.
So there are some trade secrets, which I'm totally willing to share.
That's perfect. At the same time, you're saving the world. You're saving ecology. You're developing so many new ideas for young entrepreneurs. And I would encourage young women or even men who are interested to get into a business like this, because it is not that hard to do, but it does take a lot of work, I'd say, right?
But once you set the roadmap,
yes,
then you have so much fun.
Yeah.
And you meet people and they love you because you're doing good. If you scroll back through the charity shop Instagram prior to pandemic and see all of the photos of people who came to get checks on behalf of their charity, and it's just a win-win.
It sure is.
Really, really is.
You have shared so much with us today, Rosalind. You've shared some amazing points. Now, what is your advice to the young and older entrepreneurs out there? What is the couple of points that you can give us and share with us? I know you've said that setting up a business is something you can show, but personally, when you think of your business, because when I think of the businesses that I've had, I think about the times when I fell, but I had to stand up again. And I always say that, what, in my business, I'm the accountant, I'm the janitor, I'm the secretary, I'm the receptionist. I don't care if I have employees. I got to know each and everything that they do. Right?
Very important.
Yeah, you have to know what they're doing, and there's no shame in it. I could be the receptionist if my receptionist wasn't there, even though I was the managing director. And I could clean the floor if the cleaner didn't show up because I wanted a clean office. What would you suggest, and what would you give to our audience today?
Well, that's actually also excellent advice. Know what you know from the floor to the ceiling. And then again, the whole idea of secrecy versus openness. I'm a big fan of the openness. I really am. I'm a big fan of just asking a lot of people and seeing what feedback comes back, not being afraid to ask for help when I don't know something. Along the 20 years of the Promises evolution, became the big evolution of social media. So I saw that was going to be a big boost for me if I could embrace it. But early on, I was a technological dinosaur and I didn't really want to embrace Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, these. And along the way, I realized I better get with the program, but I don't have those skills and I don't have the desire to learn them. Well, then you ask around and you hire people or you make it worth their while for people to show you what you need to know to move forward. So that not being afraid to ask for help, that's another skill. And then constantly reinventing. I shared with you before we got on camera, for the last 4 years, I now have a new career. I sold Promises. Yeah. The new girl running it has bought it. She's branded it. She dropped the Promises. It's called Charity Shop. You can follow her on social media. Doing a great job, keeping the same business model, renting my real estate back from me, which is great. But I happen to be a biologist by background. And so 20 years, I've also been fascinated with sea cucumbers. Whole other story. I won't bore you with it.
I don't know about that on another podcast.
Okay.
I am getting you back on again.
So. I don't know how much time we have, but
we've got a few minutes left.
So. Yeah, but reinventing. So that's my current career. And you can see some of the hazards of the trade, snorkeling over reefs.
Yeah.
But so the just not being afraid to reinvent, not being afraid to fail.
Not being afraid to.
What's so bad about failure? 50% of all marriages end in divorce.
Yeah.
90% or some crazy number of all businesses don't make it past the first year.
Yeah.
Why are we so secretive about failure?
Yeah. You're right.
And the other thing, the power of women. I'm in so many networking groups. That's probably why people know my name in Panama, because I love the power of women.
Yeah.
Women supporting, helping other women, giving advice. That chat that we're on.
Yes.
Perfect. Within 1 minute.
Yeah.
Hey, I need this. Where can I get a yellow fever shot? I need that.
It's amazing. When I came to Panama, I was new, as you know. I mean, that chat has helped me so much. I've met so many women through that chat. And going back to, that's the Women of the World chat. I just let everybody know. And I think it's been run by Sherry right now, right? So I just wanted to talk a little bit about, as I always do, and Rosalind just mentioned as well, there's no harm in failing. There's no embarrassment in failing. There's no embarrassment in not meeting a goal. Goals are set on a time basis. Now, time is not linear. Time is cyclical. So you can always reset your goal because there's no stop or end to it. There's no beginning or end to a goal. So you can reset a goal whenever you want and say, okay, I did 2 steps. Now I'm going to do 4 steps.
Oh, I like that analogy of circular.
Yeah,
I think
it's linear. It's not
so much of life is linear and it's a race to get to the finish.
No.
But I love that analogy.
No, so it's cyclical. It's round. It's like time. It's cyclical.
I love that.
And every time you do not meet a goal, it's not called failure, it's called experience. It's called experience. Where else have we gained our experiences from running our businesses, falling, standing up again, going through cancer? I mean, that must have been a deep fall. You stood up again, starting a new business now. So I would encourage my readers to get in touch with Rosalind. Where can we reach you?
So my personal Instagram is Roz Panama with a Z. And I'm by my full name on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me, and LinkedIn. I'm very, very fond of LinkedIn now with my current new career. I find that very powerful. And then, yeah, message me, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. My Twitter is still Promises Panama. I probably will have to change that at some point.
Yeah.
But happy to share any information, any secrets, happy to help along the way. If somebody out there is listening and wants to use the resale business model to make money with a charity angle, I'm your girl. It works. I'm here to tell you it works, and you don't need startup costs. I happen to buy my real estate, but you don't need to. So, and then, yeah, moving forward.
Perfect. So we're going to be posting this on the Women of the World as well. Once we get it, so that because there are lots of women trying to get into business or starting up, new startups. So I want to thank you for listening to us today. We've had an amazing guest with us today, Rosalind, who has shared so many things today that I think I'm going to go back and sit down and reflect on what you've said, because there's a few things that you have mentioned today has also sort of brought up my curiosity to know a little bit more, right? I thank you so much. If you like our talk, please subscribe. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm at stepbysteptalks.com, and do subscribe and do hit like. Until next time, thanks and have a great day.